Hey guys, it's Loves to Loom. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create my new elevation bracelet using double bands. If you see my previous tutorial, I did make one using these single bands, which is this version. But today I'm going to be showing you how to create my double version. The only reason I'm doing a separate tutorial is it is a little bit hard with all the bands being on there, so I just thought I'd make both. And I totally love this bracelet, so hopefully you guys like it as much as I do. I think it's super cool how much this middle here is like puffed up and sitting on top. So yeah, to make my new elevation bracelet, you will need approximately 180 bands depending on your wrist size. And let's go ahead and get started. Remember, you will need one loom, your C-clip, and your hook. For the loom, you will want to have your pins facing in the right direction and make sure you have 2 bar pins, and with those make sure they are staggered like so. We will be using these 5 pins right here in a staggered position. It kind of makes like a W. For the colors, I will be alternating between teal and pink jelly for the middle of the bracelet, and for my border, I will be alternating between clear and white. So we will always be laying double bands. Keep that in mind for the entire bracelet. They will always be double. So grabbing 2 bands, I'm going to start laying my bands from this pin to this pin, laying it just straight across, like so. And now from this pin to this pin, we're going to lay 2 more, just going straight across, and this is crooked, so I'm going to fix it. There we go. So now that we have those laid, we're going to be bringing the back bands to this pin. So with your hook, grab the back of the band, and it does put a little stress on your hook, so keep that in mind. You're going to pull that back band to the bottom left like that, and then you're going to just give it a twist onto the pin. So it makes like a twisting effect like so. Do the same to the right side, grabbing the very back band, pulling it down to the left, and then twisting it onto the pin like that. Once you've done that, go ahead and push all those bands down. And now we're going to add 1 layer of our colored bands. I'm going to start with my pink jelly. And from this pin to this pin, we're going to put it like an infinity sign on. So I'm going to lay them on that pin, and I'm just going to give it a little twist onto the right pin, like so. The bands we lay on these pins here will always be our middle bands. The bands that we lay on these 2 will always be our border bands. So just know that in case you want to use different colors. So we're going to lay our border bands. Since I already have white, I am going to switch to my clear jelly. And I'm going to lay an infinity sign on these 2 as well. So putting them on the pin, I'm going to then twist it like that. It's kind of hard to see because it's clear. And I'm going to do the same on the right side. So grab 2 more of your jellies. And we're going to twist it from this middle pin over to the right, like that, just like that. So now we should have 2 layers on all of our pins here, if you can see that. And we're going to do the looping step. So we're going to grab the very, very bottom bands, which will be 2 of them because we double band it. So grab the very bottom band and just bring that up and over that left side. Doing the same on the right side. Going in, grabbing the very bottom band, which should be white. Bring that up and over. And now we're going to loop the back side. And this is where it can get kind of hard. You can do it with your loom facing in this direction and just like reaching behind. Or you can just turn your loom so that the arrows are pointing to the left. And you can do it from this way. Now what we need to do here is grab all of these white. So it seems like a lot. There's 4 of them. So we need to bring all of them up and over. You can do 2 at a time, or you can try to grab them all at once. I am going to just grab as many as I can get, which is 2. So I'm going to grab these 2. I'm going to pull them up and over. I'm going to go back in that same middle pin, grabbing the bottom two, bringing it up and over. So all of your white should be going on that middle back pin. And since we're still back here, we can go ahead and loop our left and right sides, grabbing the two bottom bands and just bringing them up and over. Same on the left side, two bottom bands, up and over. Now you can go ahead and turn your loom back around with the arrows facing in the right direction. You're going to want to push all those down because we're going to need some room to put on the next layer of our bracelets. So now we're going to go ahead and lay another layer on. And now this time we are going to lay in the shape of a triangle, and we're going to do, this is like the start of the pattern we'll be doing for the rest of the bracelet. Now the color of the triangle that you lay will also be, it will also show up in the front. Like on this bracelet, I have the white, teal, and blue. The white is what I used for my triangle. So that is what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to use white on this one as well. So I'm going to grab my white and I'm going to make a triangle around all three of these bands. Using white may be a little tricky. You may want to use another color just so that when you loop this back band you don't get confused, because there's going to be a lot on there that we have to loop. So just keep that in mind. Now that we have that triangle laid, we can go ahead and do a looping step. So in the front here, grab those two bottom pink bands, bringing them up and over. And we're going to do the same on the right side. Grabbing the two bands, bringing them up and over. Just going to fix this because it twisted. And now we're going to have to loop this back one. So I'm going to turn it around so you can see what I'm doing. And as you can see, my white is kind of on top of my clear, and you don't want that. You want your white to be on top. Okay, so now that we're back here, it's going to be hard to see because I used clear. That was a horrible color of choosing for this. So there are 4 bands on that middle pin here. We need to bring all 4 of them up and over. Every time we lay a triangle band and come to this middle pin to loop, there will be 4 bands that we're looping over. When we lay our bands, our 3 separate bands, there will only be 2 bands getting looped. So hopefully that's not confusing you, and hopefully you'll pick it up as we go along. So enough babble, I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and grab these 4 bands and bring them up, and I'm going to bring them over into the middle. So you can grab 2 bands at a time, you can grab all 4 at once. It really doesn't matter as long as all 4 of them end up in front of that pin. So you should have only 2 bands left on that middle pin. And now you can turn your loom back around. And now we can go ahead and lay another layer. So now we're going to go ahead and lay our border bands again. Since I used clear jelly last time, I'm going to go back to white, laying it straight across in the back. And now I'm going to lay another set going right next to it. Remember, we're using double bands, so just lay them like that. And now we have to lay the front. Since I used pink for my jelly last time, and then I already have my white, now I'm going to switch to teal. And I'm just going to lay that straight across like that. Now we can do the looping step again. So we're going to grab this very bottom band, or 2 bottom bands, which is white, and bring it up and over. Same on the right side, bringing it up and over. And now we have to loop the back, so I'm going to turn that around. And like I was saying before, since we just laid our 3 sets of bands, this time we will only be bringing 2 bands over. And this is where it gets confusing because I used white. If I used a different color, these 2 bands right here would stand out a lot easier, but I decided to use white. But as long as you know that it's only 2 bands that are being lifted up and over on that pin, then you'll be fine. So grab those 2 on the middle and just bring it up and over into the middle of that. Just like that. And now we can loop our sides. grabbing the bottom 2 jellies, bringing them up and over. Same on the right, grabbing the 2 bottom bands, bringing it up and over. Push those down, turn your loom back around with the arrows pointing to the right. And now we can go ahead and lay on another layer of bands. So now we're going back to our triangle band, which I'm going to continuously use white for my triangles. Going from these 3 pins. Remember, using double bands. And now that I have laid my triangle, we're going to go ahead and do another hooking step. So grab the 2 bottom bands on the front and on the left, and now on the right. And now we have to hook this back middle pin, so we're going to be bringing 4 bands over. And this time I'm not going to turn my loom around. Since you know what bands you need to grab, I'm just going to keep it facing this direction. If it's easier for you to turn it around, that's fine. So I'm going to we need to grab 4 bands, so I'm going to grab 2 at a time. Now I did 2 that time, now I'm going to grab my next 2. So I now have all 4 bands pulled forward, and now I'm going to push those down, and I'm going to go ahead and add on another layer, which this time is going to be our border bands. So I'm going to grab my clear jelly, since I used white back there last time, and you're just going to lay it straight across. Doing the same on the right side, laying 2 bands straight across, just like that. Mine are a little twisted. There we go. And now make sure to lay your front band. I'm going to go back to pink since I used teal the last time I used a color. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the hooking step again. So I'm going to grab that very bottom 2 white bands, bringing them up and over. Going to the right side, grabbing the 2 bottom bands, bringing it up and over. I'm going to fix my twisted band. Okay, now we got to go to the back row. So now this time, since we only laid our single bands and not our triangle, we're only going to have 2 bands to pull over on this middle pin. So I'm going to just grab my 2 white bands, bringing them up and over. Now we can do the sides, grabbing the 2 bottom bands, bringing those up and over. Going to push that down. It quickly is going to get jammed and kind of tight in here. If you're using a rainbow loom, you're just going to want to just kind of like squish it down in there, and just keep doing that until it's long enough to pull it down through your loom. If you're not using a rainbow loom, I have not tried it yet, but I can only imagine you can just pull it to the left or to the right, or you could probably even just pull it out to the front, which would probably make the most sense. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and lay our triangle bands again. And now we can go ahead and do the hooking step. So remember, every time we lay our triangle bands, we will only be hooking these 3 pins. And remember, this back 3rd pin will always have 4 bands coming up and over the triangle. So grabbing the 2 bottom bands in the front on both sides, bringing them up and over, and I'm going to turn it around again just in case I have anyone confused. And now we're on the back pin here, so we're going to grab all 4 of these clear bottom jellies and bring them up and over. I'm just going to grab 2 at a time, which is fine as long as you get all 4 over. Now I'm going to turn my loom back around and push those down. So now I'm going to go back to laying my border band, which is going to be white this time since I used clear last time. And now for the front, I'm going to use teal. And now we can go ahead and do the hooking step again. So grabbing the bottom band on the left and the bottom bands on the right, bringing them up and over. And then for the back side, I will turn it around again. For the back side, we're only going to be looping the 2 bottom bands. So make sure you're only grabbing the very two bottom bands. And now we can hook the two clear jellies on the right and left side. So the hardest part is just remembering how many to hook on this back middle one. If you laid a triangle before you're going to loop back here, it will be 4 coming up and over. If you laid the 3 sections, it will only be 2 bands coming up and over. If I have confused you at all, just keep watching or rewind to watch the previous instructions, and I hope that you pick up what what you're supposed to do. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and lay our triangle bands again, which in my case are white, going around all 3 of those pins. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the hooking process again, grabbing the bottom bands, bringing them up and over. On my back pin, I'm going to grab all 4 of those bands and bring them up and over. And I missed one, so I'm going to grab that last one. So now I have all 4 of those brought up and over. And now I can go ahead and lay my border bands again. So this time I will be laying my clear on the back. Just going from left. I'm getting squished in here. I'm running out of room. Okay, and now I'm going to lay a color on the front, which this time will be pink. And now I can go ahead and do the hooking process. So I'm going to grab my bottom 2 bands on the left and right side, bringing them up and over in the front. And then for the back, I'm going to bring my bottom 2 bands up and over. Like that. And now I can hook my sides, which are 2 bands. Bringing them up and over as well. So now that I'm getting like really squished in here, I'm going to work it down through the middle. And it is very congested because we have so many bands. So just use your hook or your finger and just push it down in there. Once it starts growing out the bottom, just give it a little tug. And it should pull through and you can start seeing our bracelet coming together. So you're going to keep at that process. I am going to do it a few times without giving direction, just in case you have not caught on thus far. And then after I do it a few times, I will go off camera so that I can finish the length of my bracelet. But let's go ahead and I'll just keep laying bands and doing the process a few more times for you. And I will keep turning it around just in case anyone's not picking up exactly what I'm doing. That was 4 bands I just brought up and over. This time there's only 2 bands I'm bringing up and over. Oh, I just made a mistake. If you just laid 2 back bands like I did, do not do that. Take those off. Because this time we have to lay our triangle bands. And see, that's why I wanted to do it a few more times. Because I've done this bracelet quite a few times already, and I already forgot to do that. So that's probably one of the other things that you really need to pay attention to. So now I'm grabbing all 4 again, bringing them up and over. Okay, now I can go back to laying my jellies. Just bringing the 2 over. And if you see that I have 3 on this side, that is a mistake. I accidentally put 1 extra band. That is not correct. So disregard that. There should only be 2 on that left side. Now I'm just grabbing my 4 jellies from the back, and I brought it up and over my triangle. I don't know why I can't keep a grip on these bands today. They just want to keep popping out of my hand. Grabbing the back bands, which will only be 2 coming up over that middle. And I'm going to go ahead and do, this step one more time. So I'm going to say it since I'm going to go off camera after this. So I'm going to grab my 2 bands, putting a triangle, grabbing the bottom band, which are 2 bands, bringing them up and over. On the back side, we're grabbing all 4 of those bottom bands, bringing them up and over into the middle of the triangle like that. I'm going to push them down. I'm going to now add on my border bands. So I'm going to be adding on 2 on this back pin, and then 2 more on the one next to it. And then you need to add your color in the front. And now we can hook, grabbing the very 2 bottom bands on all of the pins, including this back middle one. It will only be 2. And I'm going to pull on my bracelet. So you can see it's starting to take shape here. I am going to go off camera, finish the length of my bracelet, and we can come back at the end and close it up together. If you are still confused or having trouble with the looping process, please rewind the video and watch the previous instructions, and then we can catch up together at the end. Okay guys, so I did go ahead and finish up the length of my bracelet back here. So now we're going to go ahead and get it closed up together. I want to make sure that we all end at the correct spot. So what I'm going to do is first make sure that you have ended like this. I'm going to do one more step so that we can all do it together. Basically make sure that the very last step that you did end like this. I have my clear jelly on this very front one, which is, there's only 2 bands. The last step you should have done here was bring the white ones up and over. And then in the back we have our white border bands, or whatever color border band you have back there. So there should just be 2 on all of those pins. So the next step would be to lay a triangle. So we are going to do that. So on these 3 pins, we're going to lay our triangle shape. Make sure you have double bands. And then we're going to go ahead like we did in the previous instructions, bring the bottom bands up and over, going around the back, grabbing all 4 of those back bands, or 2 at a time if that's easier. Just make sure that in the end you have all 4 of them brought, sorry I bumped my camera, bringing all 4 of them up and over into the middle. And then we don't do anything on the sides because there's nothing there to loop. So once you do that, there should only be 2 bands on all 3 of the back pins and on the 2 front pins. So you can go ahead and push those down a little bit. And now we can go ahead and actually get it closed up. So we're going to start at this bottom right corner here. And we are going to carefully remove these 2 bands and we're going to bring them to this upper right corner. So carefully slide that off the pin and stretch it to that upper right corner like so. Now we're going to bring this back middle one also over to this corner. This one has a lot of bands on it, so just be very, very, very careful. Slide that off, stretch it up. I'm going to stretch it behind it and then like kind of twist it on like that. And now I'm going to go to this bottom left, bringing that off the pin and just stretching it up like that. And lastly, we're going to grab this top left one, and it's going to get kind of loose, so be very careful that you don't lose it, and just put them on top also. And then push those down. I'm going to turn it around so you can see what I'm doing. So now, all of those bands should be on one pin. And yes, that is a lot of bands on one pin. So from this point, we are going to be sticking our hook down in this pin like this. Because we're going to grab onto 2 other bands that we're going to be pulling through there. So, grab 2 of your border bands, which in my case is white. Sorry about that. And carefully, and I would push them down so that there's no chance of them popping off. So we're going to stick our hook down into that pin, getting through all of the bands, and just kind of push your hook out. And I know it's kind of hard, guys, because there's so many bands. And then with the 2 bands in your hand, you're going to hook them onto your hook. It's kind of hard to get both of them. There we go. Okay, so I now have them both hooked, or I did have them both hooked. Okay, I have them both hooked onto my hook, excuse me. I'm going to turn my hook in a little bit to kind of give it a little twist so it doesn't pop off. And very carefully, we're going to pull this band up through all those other bands so that it's completely around all of those bands, like so. Hopefully you guys can see that. And now on the left side, or in my left hand, I'm holding the other side of the bands. Just place them on the hook like that. And now you should have 4 bands on your hook right here. This is where we're going to add our C-clip. So you can just like pull up like this and slide the C-clip in like that. Or you can take it off of the loom and do it that way. I'm going to try to do it like this. No, I'm not going to be able to. So I'm going to just pop it off my pin and just make sure that you really have a good grasp. Whoa. Make sure you have a good grasp on it because you can lose it very easily. So now I have all 4 of the bands on here. I'm just going to slide them to the end. And I'm going to use my left finger to go in all those bands And now I'm going to grab my C-clip and pop it around all four. Make sure you get around all four of them. I'm using a monster tail C-clip because it's a little bit bigger, but you do not have to. It fits on the regular C-clip just fine. I've tried it. So once you have it on the left side, go ahead and find on the right side, on the other end, there's like a crisscross shape here down at the bottom, or whatever bands. You can just pull like a couple of them out and just hook them onto that. Okay, so I did go ahead off camera just to get that hooked really quickly so that it didn't take me forever. So once you have it clipped, just make sure they're nice and secure. And then you can turn it around and give it a little tug, which is my favorite thing to do after making a bracelet. I just think it helps everything fall into place. And there you have my double banded elevation bracelet. I love it. I just think that this bracelet is just so unique and cool. I love how it just pops. This one is very chunky, which is what I like. I love the roundness of it, and I just think it's really cool. So I hope you guys like it as well. It is semi-reversible. It has the design on the back side, which is cool too, but it doesn't sit as comfortably as it does on the other side. I mean, you can certainly try it, but this is definitely the signature side. You can see how it like pops up in the middle here. So yeah, there is my double banded elevation bracelet. Sometimes I even like to grab it by the sides and just like pull out all the side bands. And I know it might like make it look crazy at first, but when you do that, it just helps like that middle pop out even more, and it just gives the sides like a little bit more definition and more like a little bit of a frilly look. So, okay guys, I know I've babbled long enough, and hopefully you guys love this bracelet as much as I do. If you do, please give this video a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe if you have not done so already. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys soon. Bye!